Oh, thank you. You see Paul back there over my shoulder, over the shoulder, I mean. I don't know if you
My
can see
parents
the
is in
book
the way.
from here. Okay, okay. There's a book. Hello, 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 everyone. It is March 8th, and it is Women's International Day, International Women's Day, rather. Let me say that the right way. And I am super excited today because, number one, it is my daughter's ninth birthday. And how in the world do I have a 9-year-old? I don't know. And secondly, because our guest today is actually the doctor that delivered her. So I am so super duper excited to have the woman that brought the Simone, the butterfly that y'all hear about
Yeah.
all the time. This is the woman that brought her into the world. And I absolutely needed her help because Simone was born via C-section, because the baby had the umbilical cord all wrapped around her.
She's been twirling since day one.
Yes, yes. So, Dr. Robbie McNair, thank you for joining me today. I'm so grateful that you said yes.
I am flattered, but as you know, I'm a little nervous. I don't usually do these things.
That's what everybody says. Literally, my mama has turned me down every day that I have asked her. And I am, yeah, can you get
Really?
on her, please? Can you
Okay.
please get on her? Can you please?
As
She
much
keeps
as she
turning
loves
me
her daughter.
down. She says, I don't want to do that. What are you going to do with it? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, listen, lady, it's fine.
It's fine.
So maybe I will get her. What I did, this is what I will say though. I did get about a minute and a half of Simone interviewing her on the couch yesterday.
That's perfect.
It is. So I may have to just go with that.
Yeah.
Simone was only able to remember one question. So she asked her one question. But that is better than nothing at all. So
Oh,
we will see. Um, so again, thank you for coming today. I have 4 questions for you, and
okay.
that's it. And it's funny because my first question, as you know, is about like what is an obstacle that you turned into an opportunity. And I'm just kind of laughing because I'm like, literally, the birth of my child was an obstacle that eventually was an opportunity that we got here. But as you think about over your life, and I am sure you have many instances being a doctor, being an OBGYN, but what is one of those things, whether personal or professional, that was an obstacle that you turned into an opportunity?
Yeah, this was a tough question because when you think about, like, I think people think of obstacles always have to be big challenges that you overcome, but each of us has little challenges every single day that we have to figure out. Um,
Absolutely.
one of on a probably the most impactful one was personally. Um, so I have a full time job. I have 3 children and a husband. And when my kids were small, I literally tried to do everything. And there were days I was mediocre at all my jobs. Mediocre as a physician, mediocre as a mom, mediocre as a wife.
Hmm.
And this idea that we can have it all, I soon realized wasn't actually true. We just can't have it all at the same time. And the hardest part was like reaching out for help. And at some point, I realized like there were things I needed to outsource that maybe my time was better spent reading to my kids instead of making
Mm,
sure they got to school or learning how to tell my husband like what I actually needed from him so that we could function better as a family. And there was a period, especially when my kids were like 2 and 3. So I have twins and an older one, and they are
okay.
all freshmen in college. So
Woo.
we literally had 3 little kids at the same time. And it was a lot to manage, both figuring out what they
Wait a
all need.
minute. Can you stop for a second? The kids are all in college?
Yeah, they're freshmen in college this year.
Okay.
And you've known them since they were like literally 2 and 3, and me telling horror stories of how mean they were to the babysitters. Um, but it took a lot. And that's when I realized that one thing that was missing in my life was a village. I had grown up with the village of like everybody in my neighborhood and church who took care of me. And when we moved back here, I didn't have that. So I had to learn how to create community.
Absolutely.
And creating that community also made me realize that I had to be a better member of that community. And I had to step up for other people when they needed help. And sometimes help was just like, okay, bring your kid over for a half an hour or 45 minutes because you needed a break. Because sometimes I needed somebody to give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I no longer have those obstacles, part of my job in communicating and caring for women is sharing my experiences as a parent and as a partner in hopes that some of my story will help people live better lives. So, as you know, in addition to medical advice, I'm full of unsolicited life advice, which sometimes people appreciate and sometimes they don't. But I think it's also important for women to share their struggles because
Mm-hmm.
on the surface, we all seem like we've got everything together when we don't.
Yeah.
And it's okay to acknowledge the parts of parenting that's hard, the parts of trying to be a partner that are hard, the parts of being a work that are hard. And I think it's made me a better provider in acknowledging those struggles with other women and having people feel open and honest about their own struggles.
I love it. I love it. That is, I think that's right on. And um, so quick story, when Paul and I started going for our doctor's visits, y'all, my husband would ask 5,000 questions.
Yes, Lord. Although I was kind of obsessed with Paul. He's kind of one of the smartest people I ever met.
Oh my God. And I would just be like, oh my goodness. So, though, after Paul passed, I literally, my village has been like, I can't even describe it, how like supportive they've been,
Right,
how amazing they have been. And I tell people every single day, like, I am not here today at this moment thriving without my village.
right,
That's family, that's friends, that's extended people, that's everybody.
right. And one of the things I realized that was more important for my kids that we're still sort of struggling with is that every kid needs an adult cheerleader that's not necessarily their parent. Because sometimes
That's
you
good.
need someone who's you don't feel is going to judge you or have a set of expectations to still just cheer you on. Um, it was I didn't realize how important it was for me as a kid until I became a parent.
Mm.
And to try to reach for that for my own family, it's not always been easy, but we've definitely tried.
I love it. That's great. All right. Well, that takes us right into question number two, which is, and I've heard this, you didn't explicitly say it, but what I really heard you talk about is the resilience that you've shown. And that it sounds like you're trying to teach your kids as well. So, how are you intentional about being resilient?
You know, when I got that, I was like, I don't know that I am intentional. Um,
That's
and,
fair.
and I think one of the things, at least in this last year, COVID has brought a few things. I wanted to be intentional about clarity about lots of things, like simplifying my life at home, clarity about what's really important. Because what you've learned when you're isolated for a year is that the people who really count are always going to be there, even if they're not there physically. Um, but I think every morning I wake up feeling called to do what I do. And because that calling is beyond kind of what it really does come from a higher place, then I don't have a choice. Like, it's not like I get to decide, oh, I don't want to get up and go to work today. Because the call to do it is so much greater
Hmm.
than,
Hmm.
like, even on bad days. It's like, all right, go. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. To
Yeah.
the point where I think I really would be devastated if I couldn't do it. Um,
Mm.
and I think for most women, like, we rise to the occasion. And as long as there are people around you to continue to support you and encourage you, you'll always figure out how to do it. But it's also okay to ask for help. None of us get through any of this journey alone.
please, we got to pause there because I know, and one of my girlfriends that's watching that keeps commenting, like, we've had these conversations where we won't ask for help, right? Like,
Right.
oh,
Because we're
I
all
got
taught we're
this.
supposed to be strong. Like Black women got it. We can do it by ourselves. No, we can't. Even if it's just asking each other.
Yep.
Like we don't
Yep.
necessarily need to leave the community to find those resources, whether it's but everybody does it. One of the things, I know your next question is who do you admire most? And
Hmm.
I'm going to answer that even though you haven't asked it.
That's okay.
Which is my mom. Um,
Mhm.
my mom's a teacher. She's semi-retired. Every life lesson that's really important, I actually learned from her, about how to be a friend, how to be a parent, how to teach your kids to dream. And I'm getting a little tearful. Um,
I hear it. Take your time.
she's got an amazing group of friends, and they've always been there, thick, thin. And these are the kind of folks that show up for us as her children whenever we have big life events. And now some of those people are showing up for now our kids. Like that's how deep the village is. There were always people around. Like we knew if my mama wasn't around, my neighbor across the street would, and this was true for my entire community.
Love it.
So that learning to lean on other people, even though I think of my mom as one of the strongest people I know, is that interdependence of a community of like-minded people who want your kids just to be good people was the biggest life lesson. Whatever I've learned about parenting, whether it's to be my kid's cheerleader, my kid's confidant, or sometimes their chastiser,
Mm.
those were the roles she served for us, and she still does. Even in my old age, she still serves those roles.
Old age.
Yeah, and she was my mom grew up in small town Mississippi. Um, Went to college early because she skipped second grade. Had me before she finished college. And I remember when she went back to graduate school. I remember going to her grad school graduation when I was like third or fourth grade.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but I watched her pursue like lifelong learning and to pursue dreams that at some point had nothing to do with being a parent. And I think that has
Which is
motivated
so powerful.
great. Um,
That's so powerful.
like in her 70s, she's semi-retired, still doing stuff in the educational sphere, still involved in charitable organizations. And she's had breast cancer when she was 40, had surgery, and was back at school teaching 3 months later. Like,
Wow.
and she's just like a force to be reckoned with. And quiet, humble, would never tout her praise to anyone. Um, but she's managed to raise three, what we think, my siblings and I, are really good kids and super supportive. Like we joke that my mom's always down for whatever plan we have. So we come
I
up with
love
some
it.
crazy idea, she is on board. So we were like our first travel experiences. She was like, "Okay, this is dumb, but okay," and she would finance them because we didn't have any money. And now we plan these adventures together, and we drag my 70-something-year-old mama along, and she goes with it. Uh, but we watched her care for my grandparents when they were both dying. We
Mhm.
watched her care for us, um, and so she's just amazing in that she listens. She doesn't always give advice,
Mm.
but at the end of the conversation, you always know what you're supposed to do.
I love it. That's awesome. That's a great story. I love it.
Sorry, I'm getting so emotional.
No, please don't apologize. So, I mean, one of the things that I talk about, especially as I talk about like my grief journey, is we got to lean into those emotions. Like you were very vulnerable. And so I appreciate that. And I thank you for that. And somebody got something out of that, right? Like somebody is hearing that and is like, man, this is so powerful. So thank you for that. Well, the last question puts us back into an upbeat mode.
Okay.
What is your woman empowerment song?
Okay, this might be a little cliche, but you have to understand, I have loved Aretha Franklin my whole life. When Aretha died, I cried so hard in the car on the way home from work, you would have thought
Oh,
Riri was my
mm-hmm.
best friend. So it has to be respect.
Yes, I love it. Nobody said that yet, so I love it. I love it.
I
That
got to,
is perfect. That's
yeah,
so
I
great. Are you
thought,
gonna sing it for us? You gonna sing it for
oh
us today?
no, that is a surefire way to get everybody to turn this off. Is for me to sing. That is not my gift.
Well, I love it. Dr. McNair, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for, just being that silent force, because I think that that is exactly what you are. I reach out to you occasionally to let you know how Simone is doing, what's going on with her, sending you a picture. Obviously, you get it from my mom all the time being in the office, but I just appreciate how your concern and empathy for us when Paul passed. And I know that was your boy. I know that
Yeah, he
y'all
was.
was
He
y'all
was.
would sit in the office and I would literally be like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Y'all, Paul would ask her all kind of medical questions and she'd be like, well, how do you know that? Like, that's not a normal question that husbands
Yeah.
ask when their wives are pregnant.
And he wants statistics. Like he didn't just have like a simple question. Like he's like, show me the data. Oh, I miss him. I know you do.
So yes, I do. I do. And what's funny is I was decorating Simone's room this morning and I was like, this would be much easier if I had another person here.
You know, it's funny as I was getting ready for this, I remembered your yellow dress when you got married. Like I had this vision and I was like, I can't believe how long ago that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
I am flattered that I get to be a part of your family story.
Thank you so much for bringing this bundle of joy,
Yeah.
Simone L. Davis, into this world.
Tomorrow's gonna rule the world.
She is going to rule something. That is for sure.
Just hope nobody dims her light.
Well, and I try not to as a mom, right?
Yeah.
Like, so just like you said, your mom has been on board for everything. And some days I'm like, oh, I don't feel like being bothered with all these ideas and all these things. And my house, she has art supplies all over my table and tents and all kinds of stuff. But I try to remember that, like, this is her entry into the world and that every time she does something, like, it will get her to another place. So that was a word for me. Like, I needed to hear that because I need to be on board with all her craziness and all her
Yeah.
madness.
And it's hard because there are days you're like, I just need you to rein it in a little bit. And what I've learned with my own daughter, who was very much as spunky as Simone, is middle school reined it in even when I didn't have
Mm,
to the point where at one point I was like, where's that spunky, feisty kid? Like, I want her back. And of course, I couldn't fix it. Like, she had to figure it
okay.
out. By high school, she was back to that, like, I'm my best advocate, go for it. But there was a short period of time when I was like, all the times when I was like, just calm down. Maybe I shouldn't have been. She eventually found her voice, but
Okay, Dr. McNair.
oh,
Okay.
I get it because you just like just bring it down a little bit, girl. But the world tries to tell girls, especially black girls, to sit and be quiet,
Yeah.
and we got to figure out how to have them maintain that same sense of wonder and excitement of a
Yeah.
9-year-old.
Absolutely. And I tell her already, you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah,
So that is something that I tell even at this age. I don't care what it is, with your teacher and whoever, you got to advocate for yourself.
yeah.
So that is definitely a message that I try to make sure that she has. So I know that you are working the night shift this week, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. I want you to be able to
Thank
get
you
to work.
so much, Latrice. This was actually really fun.
I told
Yeah,
you, I told you
it
it
was.
would be fun. So thank you for everyone that is checking us out. Again, it is International Women's Day. And I was so excited because this is the doctor that brought Simone into the world. So y'all blame her. No, I'm just kidding. Have a good evening, everyone.